Let's get real for a second. Silence is tricky. When a guy disappears, doesn't text back, or stops making plans, we immediately assume he's over us. But here's the truth, not every quiet man has moved on. Sometimes silence is not closure, it's confusion. Some guys stay silent because they don't know how to deal with the emotions you trigger in them. It's not that they don't feel anything, it's that they feel too much. And when they don't have the tools to handle it, they retreat. They avoid you, not because they've stopped caring, but because caring still hurts. Silence can also be a power play. He may be hoping you'll be the one to break the ice, to make it easy for him. It's a way of keeping you on the hook without having to step up. And if you're not careful, you'll spend weeks or months decoding a mystery he's not even trying to solve himself. Here's the thing, you could spend hours analyzing his every action, every online post, every moment of eye contact, or you could remember this: if someone wants you to know how they feel, they will show you. Not in mixed signals, not in cryptic messages, but in consistent action. So yes, he might not be over you. He might still think about you. He might still want you. But if he's silent, then either he can't give you what you need, or he won't. And either way, you deserve someone who can speak their truth, not leave you filling in the blanks. Your job isn't to wake him up to what he's losing. Your job is to value yourself enough to say, if you can't communicate, you can't keep me. His silence might mean there are feelings left, but it also means there's a gap he's not bridging. And love without action is just potential that will drain you if you wait around for it. So don't get caught up in decoding silence. Pay attention to the actions that aren't happening. The right person doesn't leave you guessing. They leave you feeling sure. When someone goes silent, the first instinct for many is to interpret it as rejection. We think he's over me. That's why he's not talking. But silence can be misleading. It doesn't automatically mean the chapter is closed. It might just mean the person doesn't know what to say right now. Sometimes silence is a pause, not a full stop, and understanding the difference can save you from jumping to false conclusions about where you stand. You see, human emotions aren't neatly packaged. People often pull away not because they've lost interest, but because they're overwhelmed by how much they still feel. Imagine someone trying to read a book in a language they don't understand. They may close the book out of frustration, but that doesn't mean they've stopped caring about what's inside. Silence can be the same. It's the moment they step back, hoping the emotional fog will clear so they can make sense of things. In relationships, silence can also act as a defense mechanism. If someone feels vulnerable, they may believe that saying nothing is safer than risking a conversation that exposes their emotions. This isn't healthy communication, but it's a very human response. It's the equivalent of emotionally holding your breath. You're not done breathing. You're just avoiding the discomfort of inhaling deeply. Sometimes silence isn't about you at all. It's about what's going on in their own mind and life. Stress, personal struggles, or unresolved fears can make someone shut down. They might still want you, miss you, and think about you, but they're mentally juggling too much to reach out. In this way, their quietness is less about ending the connection and more about trying to manage the noise inside their own head. Another thing to remember is that silence can be temporary while someone works out how to approach you. People who care often want to say the right thing, and the pressure of that can make them hesitate. They might draft a text and delete it, think about calling but talk themselves out of it, or scroll through your social media without leaving a trace, all signs that there's still a link there, even if it's not being spoken. The mistake many people make is treating silence as a verdict instead of a variable. Just because someone is quiet now doesn't mean they'll be quiet forever. What matters is recognizing that silence has layers. It can be a withdrawal, a cooling off period, a fear response, or yes, sometimes it is closure. But until you know which one it is, you can't assume the story's over. It's counterintuitive. But sometimes the more a person feels, the more they pull away. We expect strong emotions to bring people closer, to make them reach out more, to fight for the connection. But for some, deep feelings trigger fear instead of action. The intensity becomes overwhelming, and rather than leaning in, they take a step back to protect themselves from potential hurt. When someone truly cares, they become vulnerable, exposed in a way that makes them uncomfortable. Suddenly, every interaction carries weight. Every conversation feels like it matters too much. For people who aren't used to managing emotions like that, the safest option in their mind is to retreat. It's not that the feelings aren't there. It's that the feelings are so big, they don't know what to do with them. This withdrawal often comes from a deep fear of rejection or loss. If they lean in and you don't reciprocate in the way they hope, the emotional blow feels unbearable. So they distance themselves as a form of self-preservation. They believe that if they stay quiet, they can avoid the risk of hearing something they don't want to hear. It's emotional armor disguised as indifference. In some cases, strong feelings also bring up old wounds. If they've been hurt in the past, those unresolved experiences can shape how they respond now. Your connection with them might be stirring up memories of past heartbreaks or betrayals, making them cautious. Instead of confronting those feelings and communicating, they disappear into silence, hoping the emotions will fade to a manageable level. Another layer to this is control. Sometimes people withdraw because they want to regain a sense of emotional control. The intensity of their feelings makes them feel powerless, and silence becomes their way of regaining stability. By not engaging, they convince themselves they're back in control of the situation, even if, in reality, they're just avoiding the truth of what they feel. The result is often confusing for you. You might feel ignored, unwanted, or abandoned, when in fact the opposite is true. What's happening is that they're overwhelmed by how much they care, and their silence is their flawed attempt at coping. This is why strong feelings don't always show up as warmth or affection. Sometimes they hide behind closed doors, waiting for the person to find the courage to face what's in their heart. Not every silence is emotional confusion. Sometimes it's deliberate. There are people who use quietness as a strategy, a way to create tension or to shift control in the dynamic. They know that by pulling back. They can make you question yourself, chase them for answers, and put in more effort to get a reaction. It's a form of power play, even if it's not always conscious. When someone goes silent intentionally, it's often to see how much you'll invest in the connection without them lifting a finger. If you're the one reaching out, asking what's wrong, trying to fix things, they get the reassurance that you still care. This gives them the emotional upper hand. They know they can disappear and still have you waiting. And in some cases, that feeds their ego more than the actual relationship does. This tactic can also be used as a form of testing. Some people go quiet to see if you'll prove yourself, to check how much you'll tolerate, or to push your limits. The problem with this game is that it's manipulative. It's not about honest communication, it's about control. Instead of addressing issues directly, they create mystery, knowing that uncertainty keeps you emotionally hooked. Sometimes this silence tactic isn't just about the relationship, it's also about their self-esteem. They may feel insecure and use withdrawal as a way to get validation without having to ask for it. If you come chasing after them, it reassures them of their worth. But the irony is, this cycle often damages the very connection they're trying to protect. It erodes trust and builds resentment over time. It's important to recognize when silence is being used as a tactic versus when it's a natural reaction to emotions. The difference lies in the pattern. If someone repeatedly disappears when things don't go their way, or if they use silence after disagreements as a weapon, it's not emotional overwhelm, it's manipulation. That's when their quietness stops being a sign of vulnerability and becomes a tool for control. Understanding this kind of silence changes how you respond to it. Instead of trying harder to win them back during their quiet spells, you start asking yourself why they need to create those spells in the first place. Because healthy relationships don't rely on silence to maintain interest. They rely on openness. even when it's uncomfortable. Mixed signals are one of the most exhausting parts of any relationship dynamic. When someone goes silent, then reappears, then pulls back again, they create a cycle that keeps you emotionally unsettled. You're left constantly guessing. Are they interested? Are they done? Are they just confused? That uncertainty eats away at your peace of mind because you're spending more energy decoding their behavior than living your life. The problem with mixed signals is that they give just enough to keep you invested, but not enough to make you feel secure. A text here, a like on your photo there, a brief moment of warmth before another wave of silence. It's a drip feed of attention that makes you hold on, hoping for more. But what you're really holding on to is potential, not reality. You're chasing clarity from someone who's not actually providing it. This constant back and forth also distorts your ability to trust your instincts. Every time you think you've figured out where you stand, they do something that contradicts your impression. One moment you feel certain they're gone, the next they drop a small breadcrumb of connection. Over time, you start second guessing yourself, wondering if you're overreacting or misreading the situation. That mental loop keeps you emotionally stuck. In many cases, mixed signals are less about genuine confusion and more about convenience. The other person may enjoy the comfort of knowing you're still there when they want attention, without committing to giving you the consistency you need. It's like they keep a door slightly open, not enough to invite you fully in, but enough to stop you from walking away completely. This isn't fair to you, but it works for them as long as you keep playing along. Another danger of mixed signals is how they shift your focus from your own needs to theirs. Instead of asking, do they meet my standards for communication and consistency? You end up asking, what can I do to keep them engaged? That's a dangerous flip because it makes you work harder for their attention instead of expecting mutual effort. It puts your emotional energy in their hands instead of your own. The longer you accept mixed signals, the more you normalize uncertainty. You start lowering your standards without realizing it, telling yourself you just have to be patient, that maybe they're going through something. While empathy is important, it should never come at the cost of your emotional clarity. If someone can't be consistent, their silence isn't just a personal struggle. It's a choice that's costing you time you'll never get back. When someone truly wants you to know how they feel, they'll show you, not in hints, not in delayed responses, and not in random moments of attention that fade the next day. Consistent action is the clearest indicator of genuine interest. Silence can leave you wondering, but action leaves no room for doubt. If a person values you, they'll find a way to make it known through what they do, not just through what they say. Or in this case, don't say. It's easy to get caught up analyzing every quiet moment, thinking, maybe they're busy, maybe they're shy, maybe they're still figuring it out. But when someone wants to bridge the gap between you, they will. They'll pick up the phone, send the message, make the effort, because the fear of losing you outweighs their hesitation. In that sense, action becomes the ultimate truth teller. Even small, consistent actions matter. It's not always about grand gestures. Sometimes it's the daily check-in, the follow-through on promises, the willingness to initiate plans. These are the behaviors that communicate care and investment. Silence might leave you guessing, but consistency leaves you feeling secure. And that's the difference between emotional stability and emotional limbo. When someone chooses not to act, it's still a choice. We often excuse inaction by telling ourselves they're going through something, or they're just not good at expressing themselves. While those things can be true, it's also true that people make time for what matters to them. If days, weeks, or months pass without action, the lack of effort itself becomes a message, and it's usually clearer than we want to admit. The danger in focusing on absence instead of action is that it keeps you in a state of waiting. You hold on to what they might feel instead of responding to what they're actually showing you. This is how people end up stuck in long, uncertain situations, believing in potential rather than paying attention to reality. The gap between what you hope for and what they deliver becomes a breeding ground for disappointment. So rather than obsessing over why someone is silent, start asking, what are they doing to show me I matter? If the answer is nothing, then you already have the clarity you've been searching for. In relationship, action isn't just communication, it's commitment in motion. A person can still have feelings for you and yet do nothing to keep you in their life. This is one of the hardest truths to accept in relationships, that love or attraction alone doesn't guarantee action. Someone might think about you every day, replay memories in their mind, or even feel a pang of jealousy when they see you with someone else. But if those feelings don't translate into consistent effort, they remain just that, feelings. The danger here is that we often equate emotion with commitment. We think, if he still cares, he'll come back. If he still loves me, he'll reach out. But reality is more complex. People can care deeply and still stay silent because fear, pride, or circumstances outweigh their desire to act. It's not always about whether they feel. It's about whether they're willing to do something with those feelings. Silent feelings can also be a form of emotional comfort for the other person. They might like knowing they still have affection for you in their heart, but they avoid the vulnerability or responsibility that comes with acting on it. This allows them to preserve the fantasy of connection without risking the discomfort of real-life complications. In other words, they keep you in their mind without making the effort to keep you in their life. For you, this can create a false sense of hope. You may interpret certain looks, subtle gestures, or indirect contact as proof that they'll eventually return. But unless those signs are followed by clear, consistent action, they're just sparks without fire. And sparks alone won't keep you warm. You can't build a relationship on unspoken emotion. It requires behavior that matches the feeling. It's also important to remember that action requires courage. If someone isn't ready to face that courage, their feelings, no matter how strong, won't move the relationship forward. They may be stuck in their own emotional loop, waiting for the right time that never comes. Meanwhile, you're left waiting, thinking the silence is temporary, when in reality, it's become their default mode. So, while it's comforting to believe that their quietness hides deep care, you have to look at what's missing. If the love they claim, or you believe, they feel isn't followed by effort, then it's love that exists only in theory, and theory alone can't give you the security, clarity, or partnership you deserve. When you place your value in someone else's ability or inability to communicate, you give away control of your own emotional stability. If his silence dictates your mood, your day, or your self-worth, you've handed him more power than he's earned. The truth is, your value doesn't decrease just because someone fails to acknowledge it. Silence says more about the speaker than it does about the one listening. Uncertainty in relationships can be addictive in a toxic way. The constant wondering, the occasional breadcrumb of attention, the small signs that keep you guessing, they create an emotional roller coaster. And like any roller coaster, the highs feel thrilling, but the lows are exhausting. Over time, you start mistaking intensity for connection, thinking that the anxiety you feel is proof you care. But in reality, it's proof that you're tolerating instability. Valuing yourself means recognizing that you deserve clarity. It means understanding that emotional limbo isn't a sign of patience or loyalty. It's often a sign you're settling. If someone can't meet you with honesty, consistency, and openness, then no amount of feelings on their side can make up for that gap. Your worth is not negotiable, and it should never depend on someone's willingness to speak up. When you hold yourself to a higher standard, silence becomes a red flag, not a romantic mystery. You stop glorifying the idea of, maybe he still cares, and start asking, is he showing up for me now? That shift in mindset changes everything. It takes you from waiting to deciding, from wondering to knowing. You stop being an audience to someone else's indecision and start being the author of your own next chapter. Part of valuing yourself is refusing to chase communication. If he chooses not to speak, that's his choice, but your choice is to step back instead of stepping in to fix it. This isn't about pride, it's about self-respect. You can extend grace, but you shouldn't extend an endless invitation for someone to withhold from you while expecting your loyalty in return. At the end of the day, valuing yourself above uncertainty means keeping your peace a priority. You can acknowledge that he might still have feelings for you, but you also recognize that those feelings are irrelevant if they don't lead to healthy, consistent action. You don't wait for someone to decide you're worth showing up for. You decide it for yourself. Love without clarity is like a map without directions. You might know where you want to go, but you'll never get there. True connection isn't just about how much someone feels. It's about how clearly they communicate those feelings and how consistently they act on them. When love leaves you guessing, it stops being a source of safety and starts becoming a source of stress. Clarity doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean someone will always say the right thing or never make mistakes. It means you don't have to question where you stand because their actions, words, and consistency leave little room for doubt. You feel secure not because the relationship is flawless, but because it's transparent. And transparency removes the need for endless overthinking. The problem with silence is that it robs you of that clarity. When someone chooses not to share where they're at emotionally, you're left to fill in the blanks. And the human mind will always fill those blanks with the worst possibilities. Over time, the silence becomes louder than any words could be, echoing in your mind until it drowns out your own peace. In healthy love, clarity is mutual. You both feel free to express needs, share concerns, and ask questions without fear of pushing the other person away. There's no game of decoding mixed messages because everything is out in the open. This isn't about constant reassurance, it's about building a dynamic where trust and understanding are the default, not the exception. When love lacks clarity, it often means one person is doing the emotional heavy lifting, trying to interpret signals, manage expectations, and maintain hope in the absence of communication. That imbalance creates resentment, even if you don't notice it at first. You start to feel more like an investigator than a partner, and that's not what a healthy relationship looks like. So when someone's silence keeps you guessing, remember this: the right person won't leave you living in a state of confusion. Love that's meant for you will make itself known, not in cryptic hints, not in sporadic bursts of attention, but in steady, open, and reliable clarity. Anything less leaves you chasing shadows instead of building something real.